Welcome back to the Strong Opinion Hibs podcast. This is episode 53. As always, I'm your host, Jack, and tonight I'm joined by Charlie. No Calvin, unfortunately, but I'm still joined by the Beard. So how are you, Charlie?
I'm good, mate. This is becoming a habit, having a happy podcast after Hibs winning, so I'm doing all right, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I've had a nice day out with the family today, so that was nice, and all the better that Hibs got a good result at the weekend as well against Ross County. As we'll talk about, Jake Doyle-Hayes, my new favourite player after those heroics. So as you might have noticed, we've got a guest on tonight. We're delighted to be joined by Aidan. Aidan's a community coach with the Hibernian Community Foundation. So Aidan, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your role?
Yeah. So I'm Aidan, 21, so I'm still young, youngish, I suppose you can say. So the role kind of came out of nowhere. I was applying for all the jobs and it came up. And we got the ball rolling, so I've not started yet. That'll be something I'm looking forward to doing. A lot of it is just really helping the next generation of Hibs players. I think that's the biggest part of it, really seeing and developing them and pushing them into the future. Because at the end of the day, I think that's the best thing for the academy just now. But there's not much more to it.
That's good. No, it's always good to see people getting involved. I think the Community Foundation do fantastic work. Obviously, I've been involved on the charity side of things, helping out with the bucket collections and that at Easter Road. So, and I obviously spent a little bit of time working with the Girls Academy media as well. So it's good to see all the work that the Community Foundation do at both a football and a non-footballing level as well. So, it's great to have you on tonight as well, mate. So we'll jump right into it. And obviously, back to winning ways in the league against Ross County, a 2-0 win. And that's Sean Maloney's first league win in the calendar year. So that's brilliant for him. And a good win for us all round. Like Ross County, a tough team to play. They obviously were in good form, isn't it? So since you're the guest, Aidan, we'll come to you first on this point. What were your thoughts sort of heading into the game against Ross County?
I think I was a bit nervous. County have been on a. You look at that. I think they've had a lot of draws, but they've been good and they've fought back and they've been scoring goals. So even when they concede 1 or 2, they get back 1 or 2. We've seen that against Rangers. I'm nervous. I was always nervous, and I think that's been a focal point in the last how many games, 6 games or something, where you've been nervous this year. You've kind of went into the games not knowing what to expect. But I thought we were brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I was nervous as well. You look at the games against Rangers, and Ross County are a team that, as I was saying when we previewed the game, that they need to be put away. They don't go away. And it was always going to be difficult. They were going to come play quite defensively. Malcolm Mackay's a traditional Scottish coach in that sense, that they were probably going to park half the team behind the ball, which they did, as we'll go on to talk about. So we'll move on to starting 11. And Charlie, what were your thoughts that came out? Obviously, Josh Campbell, a starter, which a lot of people maybe weren't too happy to see, but was maybe out of necessity that more than anything else, with Dimitri Mitchell out injured after the game in Arbroath. So what was your reaction to the lineup, Charlie?
I think with all the injuries taken into consideration, it's probably the strongest team that Maloney could have went with. I'm still not happy with Josh Campbell getting a start, but I think when you look at it though, his only other defensive option was Darren McGregor, and I don't think Maloney fancies him. I think that's why Stevenson dropped deep into defence. But no, I think I was a bit surprised Muller never got a start after scoring at Arbroath. But apart from that, mate, I think it was probably the team I expected to see, where obviously if Mitchell had been fit, I think he would have played. But no, I wasn't too dishappy with the team.
Yeah, no, I think I'm the same, to be honest. Campbell, for me, it was a strange one, but he's the only option you've got in that sense. So we'll come to you, Aidan, about that. What are your sort of views on Josh Campbell as a player, and what have your thoughts been on him in the past couple of games? Obviously, been getting a lot of stick from supporters, and I think some of it's justified, to be honest. Gives the ball away too cheaply in that. So what are your views on it?
I think the big part people forget he's 21. He's 21, played a season at loan at Edinburgh City. He was never ready for the Hibs first team at all. He wasn't, and I think that's the downside of having a good game against one of the old firm teams. You're thrown in because you think, this boy's going to be the next best thing. When realistically, he's not there yet. I think he will be. I think I still have a little bit of hope for Josh Campbell. I think he does the basics really well. I think even in the academy, he started as a centre back. So I think he's just not tall enough to be a centre back, and that's why he's been chucked in the middle of the pitch. But he does the basics well. You see him sometimes. You see him with the first GDH goal. He finds him straight away, so he's quick off the mark. There's so many things lacking where I feel like a loan to Kilmarnock would have been more beneficial to him than the likes of Dylan Tate.
Definitely. I've been saying that as well. I think he needs to go out and look at a championship team like Kilmarnock, or even something like Inverness, Thistle, up the top end of the championship, to get him that experience and get him used to that sort of level of football, and then he can come in. And I think it's worked wonders for younger players in the past from other clubs, other Premiership clubs. You've looked at Henderson, for example, when he went out to Dunfermline, that worked well for him. So I definitely think that there is a good player in Campbell. He just needs that experience in a less pressurised environment.
I think the only thing you can kind of look at is you look at the players that have came out of the academy, players like Ollie Shaw, like Fraser Murray, like Jamie Gullen, who look the part in games but just aren't. And I think there's a chance he could be that, but I don't think he will be. I think he's got a bit more about him than they do. But again, I think it's just a waiting game with Campbell. I think he gets a lot of stick, and really so you can't put in subpar performances, not get stick with the fans. But do the fans take it too far just now? I think they do a little bit. I think there's been a horrible atmosphere about the club just now, especially when it comes to fans. And you look at Twitter, obviously I'm always on Twitter. I love putting my input in, my two-piece worth. But I think the boy's confidence will be shot to bits. And I think you're correct. He just needs that time on loan somewhere like Inverness, where it's a bit groggy, where you have people who are like John Robertson, who are old school Scottish players who will be able to put that in advice to him, even though he's not the manager, still direct to the football and stuff. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll move on to we're going to stick with you in first half. Obviously, we didn't create that much. It was sort of slow first half, and we were looking at this going, is this going to be like the St Mirren game or the Livy game where we have a slow first half, and we're sort of, I was quite worried looking at that going, oh, come on, we need to sort of be a bit more direct. And, so what was your views on the first half?
I think you're right. It seems like a common theme as well, not just under Maloney, but under Ross as well, going for like the last season and a half, where we get really good in the first half, and we push in the second half. We're very much a one-side team, and it's so frustrating because we look at the game against I forgot who we just played, County, where we dominated them in the second half. I think we're much better second half. The first half was so slow, and it's a common theme. Again, I think there was the few chances that Cadden across the box. I'd been defending Cadden so much, but we're saying, oh yeah, like he's putting in these crosses, but sometimes he doesn't look up. I think you can understand the frustration of Nisbet, GDH. You see Ewan Henderson says, oh, they really get frustrated when Cadden plays a ball and it's just nowhere near anyone. But it was a good ball, and I think you could also say that if Nisbet or somebody was on their toes, they're getting to the ball, they're putting it in. But yeah, again, although it was such a slow first half, it was so frustrating. Especially watching it from home, it's a nightmare because you're like, oh, I'll watch it from home, but in the background, but then you get too into it, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was even worse at Easter Road, trust me, because the minute the ball gets played back, the complaining starts. But yeah, I think the one thing I picked up on, and Charlie, I'll come to you on this, but the chance we had, obviously, Jasper bombs it up the wing, gives it to Doig on the overlap, and he puts it across. And this is something that Tam McManus actually picked up in the commentary. Brilliant ball for Doig, and he'd done so much effort to get there. Nobody's waiting for it. Nisbet's back at the 18-yard line, and you go, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to see that, because if Nisbet had tried to make an effort to get in there, that's a great ball for Doig. It's dangerous. If you get somebody on the end of it, you could be talking about a goal there. So, Charlie, do you think we need to be getting better at that than when players like Doig or Jasper is making the effort and putting good balls in, that we need to have players like Nisbet making more of an effort to get in there and get on the end of it?
I think on that, I think Nisbet's not your typical fox in the box striker. It looks like now that he's looking like he's dropping deep. He said that in his interview midweek, or maybe after the Arbroath game, that he's really enjoying the system he's playing. But that's all fine and well if you've got another player who's getting in front of him. So I think, the balls in the box are good, but we've got nobody on the end of them. And I think we need a midfielder potentially, like McGuinness was doing at the start of the season, where he's happy to go past the striker. And we've not got that just now. And even with Doig, like, he's never going to be that type of striker either. So we are lacking that. But I do think, though, that the balls into the box, if they're aimless balls into the box, there's probably no point playing them. But I think it's coming, though. Like, we're definitely getting more crosses into the box, which is good, but we need an end product at the end of them.
I think I've been saying that for a long time now, that we just need to get somebody that'll get in there and get on the end of it. Sort of like how Doig was when he first hit the form. When Jack Ross first came in and Doig first hit his form, he was just getting in there and getting on the end of those sorts of balls. And yeah, they're scrappy goals, are horrible to watch. but they're goals. You know what I mean? And that's what I think we need a bit more of that now. Obviously, Doyle just had his issues with injuries and COVID and everything now, which means he's about a yard off the pace, which is unfortunate. But you know that's going to be. I think Melkerson, when Maloney sees fit to start him or play him, I think Melkerson will provide that. So we'll move on and we'll come into the second half. Now, the second half, as we sort of touched on, come out, start dominating County, getting some really good chances. And before I move on to the two cracking goals, I want to sort of talk about some of the other chances. And I'll come to you first, Aidan. What about, you know, if it hadn't been for Laidlaw, we could have been talking about 3 or 4-0 if it hadn't been for Laidlaw. So what are your views on that one, Aidan?
I think he's a very good goalkeeper. I think he was a good goalkeeper when he was at Hibs. But again, it's kind of like that thing. He just wasn't there. He wasn't Hibs quality. Like, I think you look at Rocky Marciano replaced Laidlaw. Like, Adam Bodjan came in. Like, two great goalkeepers. Well, two better goalkeepers and then good for Scottish football anyway. So yeah, I think Laidlaw is great. I think the save that he made for Poach's header was ridiculous. I think he is just a good goalkeeper. I think there's a. Have you noticed, like, any goalkeeper that comes to Easter Road seems to have an absolute stormer? Everyone.
I know.
Like, what's going on here? But Laidlaw's a good keeper. I think it's a weird one, isn't it? Like, it's a weird one how good he can be, and maybe at the time we should have focused on that. But again, we've had good goalkeepers since. But yeah, I think that's just my not liking Matt Macy sort of thing coming out there. But yeah, no, he's good, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think he made some fantastic saves. Obviously, the one, and you were just begging for Henderson to get his first Hibs goal because he gets in brilliant for Henderson to get there. And I think, if I'm being critical, maybe should have pulled the trigger a bit earlier, but still a brilliant save for Laidlaw there. So, Charlie, what did you think about that Henderson chance?
He's got his score, and he's got his score, really. It's a great save. Didn't take anything away from Laidlaw, but he's got his score. I think Henderson's had a few of those chances, but I was saying to you and Calvin in the stand, mate, I think he's just getting up to Matt Sharpness now, and I think he's getting himself into these positions where the goals will come. But it's going to take time. Like, you know, he hasn't played much football this season. You know, he only played a handful of games for Celtic, but he scored against Betis in Europe. But no, I think he's got to score, but good save as well. But no, it is what it is. Like, I'm all right with Henderson missing these sorts of chances as long as we're winning the games. You know, like, yeah, I think he had a chance last week against Arbroath that he missed, but we won 3-1. So, like, I'm all right with that because he's getting himself into these positions that, say, for example, he hits that Laidlaw and it bubbles out and Nisbet puts it in the net. You didn't think about Henderson's missed a chance. You know what I mean? Like, he's getting into these chances. For my money, he was one of our better players on Saturday. So he's got to score, but also I'm all right that he's missed it. You know, I'm not going to shut him down on Twitter saying he's a rubbish player because he's missed a chance. It's not like that at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're doing right there. I think that's the only weakness in Henderson's game just now. He fits the Maloney system so well. He's such a 1-2 pass player move. I think that's a big thing. Him and Jasper, the connections they play when it's just 1-2 quick and then they're off. But yeah, I think you're correct. Henderson just needs to. I think it comes, but it's still something he should work on. Something he should be in the training ground. He should be putting those work in because again, it's like I think we were 1-0 up at the time he missed that. So if they go up the other end of the goal, then 5 minutes later, everyone's like, "Oh, Henderson, or what a miss that was." Like, so I don't get annoyed by it. I get frustrated during the time of it because I'm like, you have to put those away. But at the same time, when we're winning, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. That's it. You know, and still, I think he did well to get there. I think it was some good awareness from him to get in there as well. So we'll move on to the goals, and I'll come to Aidan for the first one. You know, brilliant. First of all, brilliant from Campbell. I've got to say, I'm going to say, really, that was good for Campbell. Not to just he realised he probably couldn't have put it back in because there was quite a few Ross County defenders that he just decides, right, I see JDH, and JDH obviously said it in his post-match interview that he wants that more so that he can take a pop at it. You know, Ross Laidlaw sees it late because there is a lot of bodies in the way, and he does get a slight hand to it, but shot's too powerful back in the net. So, thoughts on that one?
I thought it was good. I think the whole play was good. I think the ball went in the box, and then Campbell being quick enough to just move it on was brilliant. I think he's so good in those tight areas, and I think that's one bit of Campbell's game. If you're going to praise him on, it's those tight, spacious areas, or in areas where there's under a bit of pressure, apart from in the middle of the pitch. But anywhere a part of the pitch is good. Like, you see him when he drops back at defence, sometimes he turns and he plays the ball. So it was something that you got to praise him for. GDH is like I said at the start of the season when he first came in, he's going to be a big player for the Hibs. There wasn't that long ago where GDH was saying that he likes to play further forward. So I think, is that a thing of Maloney saying, right, without McGuinness just now, you're going to have to play that further forward. Without Neil, you're going to have to play further forward because it's the only option we have. But yeah, you're right. He says he wants the balls at the end of the box, and I don't see why we don't feed him it more. I think if we start using Cadden to cut the balls across, behind the box and getting them into GDH and maybe pull that trigger, I like it a lot like we did with Malin when he used to just smash them from the edge of the box. I think there was a start with Malin, his first 5 Hibs goals weren't even in the box. Yeah. So yeah, I think you're correct. GDH you just didn't expect it. And when it went in, everyone was kind of like, well, it's just happened. But I think GDH will be a big player for the Hibs.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was one of those ones where, I went off the rails a bit. It was like, it hits the back of the net. And I was jumping on Calvin's back and everything because I just didn't expect it. I just did not expect it. But we've been crying out for it. I said it on Twitter and Calvin put it on the podcast. We've been crying out for a player when they see an opportunity just to go bang, take a pop. Because, the worst that's going to happen is it's going to go over the bar, or it's going to it's going to come off the bar or the post and come back out and we could get a tap in, So that's why you should always take a pop, or you get the keeper to force it over and you'll get a corner. So that's why you should be doing it. And yeah, it was very Stevie Malin-esque, to be honest, that goal. Very Stevie Malin-esque. That was like Malin's bread and butter. So I hope JDH does that more often. And then we'll move on to the second goal, which was, well, it was just filthy, wasn't it? It was brilliant. And Charlie, I'll get your results. Obviously, excellent, first of all. I think good delivery for Mueller. And then JDH comes back out, chest, touch, bang. It was just brilliant. If you showed people that and didn't say that was a Scottish Premiership, you could easily pass that off as a Premier League or a La Liga or a League One or a Bundesliga goal. You could easily pass it off as that. The technique was brilliant, just the chest, touch, bang. Again, we've been crying out for a player to do that. So Charlie, views on the second goal.
I think briefly to touch on the first goal quickly, the one thing you never mentioned, Jack, was how aware Rocky was to shove the defender to the ground to get the shot.
I didn't realise that at the time, actually.
I was watching it back on either Twitter or YouTube, one of the two, and just seeing how Rocky just gives him wee shoulder barge and he's on the deck. Like, that's cracking. But on the second goal, pick of the bunch, it's funny, I was again watching the second goal back on Twitter and you hear the crowd go, shoot, and then it's like, it just goes mental when it hits the net. And that's exactly what we've been missing. A midfielder that's not scared to shoot outside the box as well. Like, and it's, I think, I don't know if that's probably going to help Doyle Hayes' confidence to shoot, because it doesn't feel like he's been confident, or maybe that's a false accusation, but he hasn't looked very confident when he gets close to the box. But now he's scored 2. I mean, his pals were there. Can they come every week? Like that's giving him confidence. And I think it's the right time of the season to get that confidence for a midfielder, because, Noel's injured. McGuinness has made the glass. He's got Campbell next to him. He's got Henderson. And if he can provide the goals, then that's what we're missing, because we're missing goals all over the park. Like, strikers haven't really scored much this season. Boyle, obviously, our top goal scorer, take that out, and Nisbet's our now top goal scorer with 6 goals, I think, in the league. So, we're lacking goals. So to have a midfielder that can score, albeit he's only scored twice, like, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But I think it's got the makings of potentially a midfielder that can score that we're really lacking at the moment.
Yeah, we've needed that. And I've said that, and a lot of people used to get on to me for saying I like Stevie Malin because he only scored goals, obviously. I think obviously that's disgusting that a midfielder only scores goals. Unacceptable. But no, I think Stevie Malin, we've been needing a midfielder like him for quite a while that's just not afraid to take a pop. And I'm glad that JDH has done that. So hopefully that's the first of it. But if his old GAA team want to come and watch him more often, then because I didn't know that he used to play Gaelic football, but he did. So maybe that's where he learned to have a rocket on him like that, just booked the ball. But it was brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic. And again, just about everything out my pockets went. I didn't have my pockets zipped up. Everything went flying out my pockets with that one, because it was just, when you're in the stand watching it, I think it's just all that much more better just seeing it hit the back of the net, and it was amazing. And I think it felt weird celebrating goals at Easter Road again, and celebrating a win. It was like, what do we do here?
It felt strange celebrating cracking goals as well, because usually they get scored into us. How many times have Hearts scored a goal not like that, but a quality goal, or Celtic or Rangers? It was nice to have a Hibs goal hit the net like that.
Absolutely, it was brilliant. And I've got to say, Sky Sports, come on, Jack Doyle Hayes. I just thought I'd bring that up.
His twin brother has started playing football.
So we'll move on and sort of. I like to do this now. Is we're going to pick out 3 players each that stood out to us in the game, and Aidan, since you're the guest, we'll come to you first.
I think you've got to say Jay Doyle Hayes first, surely. I think he's brilliant, and I think that's, again, when he first came, he was like that. I think did he have COVID for a while?
He had COVID. He had COVID when it first, just after he came in. And
then came back and was like half the player he was previously. So how affects that? Jasper's my favourite Hibs right now. I think he's so good. I think he doesn't score. He's not scoring, he's not assisted, but it's the little things he does. And I think he's like so skillful. And like Arbroath last week, I was like killing him because he was just like trying to do all these skills. But when you're on a pitch, these skills work. He's got like such a quick half step where he gets away from them. And then there's times where you see the game and him and Henderson, it's like 1-2s. They split the defences open and then get Cad and then Doyle just pelting it. It would have been better if it was Mitchell. Obviously, but injuries that seem to be a common theme. And then, do you know what? Ryan Porteous, I thought he was good again. And he got a free relief for that performance, so well done to him. No, but he was just so good, and I think that's going to be a common thing. There's a part of me that doesn't think Ryan will sign a new contract, and if he does, it's with the promise that he'll be allowed to go, just to get that bit more money. But he was outstanding as well. I think the whole team, it's hard to really figure that, because that second half, the whole team were kind of in like a fluid motion. And I think on Twitter, I've been really thinking about it. I said, when it clicks, it'll click. And you're starting to show those signs where it's actually clicking. I think it's very Cruyff in football, and that's what it is. Like, it's going to be slow, it's going to be painful for the first 20 season you're watching it. I'm quite lucky. I'm a Man City fan as well, so I watched City first season under Pep Guardiola. Sometimes you're like, why are they passed it that good? This is mindlessly boring. But when it clicked, obviously not to the same level, they're world class footballers. It clicks, and it will. And I think, again, just to put my wee bit input here, people have to be patient. People are going to have to, like, because we go away to Celtic next week, if people think we're going to be able to play some ball splitting football, like James Scott splitting defences was not what I was expecting against Ross County. He done it though. The boy played it away. So we go away to Celtic next week, and I think that's where we're going to struggle. But people just got to be, again, patient. It just takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charlie, 3 players that stood out to you?
Doyle Hayes probably has to be on everyone's. Doyle Hayes. I think Matt Macy stood out to me, which is very rare that you ever hear me or anyone giving Matt Macy credit. But I think he done the simple things well, like on Saturday in the first half, where was it Charles Cook, or it might have been him or Jordan White, had that chance where he tries to chip him, but he just stays in his line. Like, does the simple things, and he had a few good saves. Matt Macy, I mean, you know, I'm not a big fan of Macy, but I think he done the simple things well on Saturday. And I think like Aidan said, Porteous has to be in there as well. I think he's an absolutely fantastic football player that his best football is going to come away for Hibs, which is the unfortunate reality of it, because when he leaves Scotland and the press aren't on his case all the time, he's going to be, you know, he could walk into a Premier League team, and I think 100%. He will. I think he will one day. So I think he was class on Saturday. There was that chance that Charles Cook's bombing down the line when I think might have still been 1-0, and Porteous just cuts in and intercepts it and moves over. So Porteous, Macy, and Doyle Hayes for me.
Yep. So I'd say obviously JDH. I think there's a consensus there. 2 fantastic goals and proving what he can do as a player as well. Which is always good to see. So 2 fantastic goals to him and proving what he can do. I mean, Macy actually stole mine there, Charlie. Macy, brilliant. I think he did what he needed to do. He did the basics as a goalkeeper, and I think there's been a few games where obviously he's been a bomb scare, and he's done loads of things that make me go, come on. And the other thing I'd like to say is he was actually quite quick in getting it out as well. Which is one thing I've been criticising about his game recently, is he was very slow to sort of make a decision and pass it out or clear it. And he didn't. He was quick. So maybe, I don't know if Sean Maloney's had a word, or whether the new goalkeeping coach has been teaching him new techniques or whatever. But I think he was spot on for me. Spot on. Did everything a goalkeeper needs to do. And I think It was a solid 6 out of 10 performance, which is what you want for your goalkeeper, above average. That's all you can expect for a goalkeeper in a game. So, and he kept a clean sheet as well. So, yeah, I think Macy for me. And you know, I'm going to go and say Jasper. I think because I was going to say Ports. I thought maybe I'll be a bit different since you was able to say Ports. I think Jasper's an utter baller. I mean, he's fantastic, and he fits in with what Maloney needs as a player. He fits in with what Maloney wants from a player as well. You know, he's a bit cheeky. I think it was brilliant how he lost the ball about 3 or 4 times. He was still getting it back, fighting it, getting it back, and dummying players and getting. I think that's brilliant. You want to see that. It's very seldom you see that out of a winger in Scotland outside the Old Firm, unless it's a foreign winger that's been brought in for the Old Firm. You very seldom see that in Scotland. So I think it's brilliant. And I'm talking about English players that come up to Scotland as well. You very seldom see it. So to see Jasper, I don't know, maybe that's the European influence with getting him with the Bulgaria under-21 set-up or what, you know, I don't know. But he was fantastic. And I think he had another good game. And you know he's going to get a goal and he's going to get assists eventually once he just keeps working and getting used to his teammates. So I thought Jasper was fantastic. So I'll now move on. And just before we move on for the Ross County game, we've got some talking points on Calvin. So Calvin picked out some talking points since he couldn't join us. Sorry, since Calvin couldn't join us tonight, he's brought up some talking points. So I'll just rattle through them and then I'll come to the two of you and we can sort of discuss them. So first of all was we weren't very good in the first half, created lots. We've already sort of touched on this, but Charlie, do you want to expand on that any, or you think we've discussed it enough?
I disagree. I think we were all right. We didn't create much, but I think we were trying to cut Ross County open. And I say that to you in the stands. When we get one, we'll get a second. So, nah. I mean, I can see where Calvin's coming from, but nah. I thought we were relatively good first half.
Yeah, and Aidan, your thoughts on that one?
I can't agree with Charlie. I think we were maybe just a bit slow. I think that's the only problem. I think sometimes we just start a bit slow and we're not as off the ball, and then Maloney must have had a word, and then also we were flying. But yeah, I think I disagree with that. I don't think we were bad, just slow, and I think that's a common thing just now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm agreeing with the two of you as well. You know, we were creating chances. There was chances there. I just think we're a bit slow, but obviously the sort of football that Maloney plays, that's going to happen. You just got to take time to warm up, get into a game. That's normal. For you notice that a lot of Ange Postecoglou first came into Celtic. A lot of games Ange plays, Celtic are sort of begin off quite slowly, and you've seen that against Dundee, and you know I know they lost against Bodø/Glimt, but they still did that against Bodø, which is obviously their downfall. But that's what happens to Celtic. European managers and managers for Asia, that's what you notice with them. And I think what Maloney's setting up is you've got to view in his mind, Hibs playing Ross County is like Belgium playing the likes of Liechtenstein or Belarus, sort of a lower ranked country from UEFA or FIFA. You know, that's what he's seeing in his head, and that's what he's planning for. Because that's what Belgium will do. I noticed that when they beat Belarus 8-0, Belgium started off very slow, and 6 of the 8 came in the second half against Belarus. So that's what you've got to sort of compare it to for me. And again, when they beat Liechtenstein 5-0 in a friendly, again, most of the goals were scored in the second half. And that's how you wear these teams down. Because the likes of Liechtenstein, Belarus, Ross County, they're just going to park most of the team behind the ball and play defensively. So yeah, that one for me. So the second point from Calvin, and you can tell he's been sitting in the West Stand with a comment like this, is the 2 wonder goals paper over the cracks. So Aidan, I'll come to you first on this one.
I don't think it is. I think that's it. What cracks? I didn't see many cracks with County. I think for once there wasn't many. I think you can look at past weeks. I think I don't know what he's saying there, to be honest. I can't clap. Do you want cracks? Maybe were we a bit slow again in the second half? I don't think so. I think we were good in the second half. I think there was plenty of chances created in the second half. So maybe he has been sitting in the West a bit too much.
And Charlie, your views on that one?
No, I think Calvin just plays devil's advocate sometimes. I think basically, well, what I take from that is, does a midfielder score in paper over the fact that Nisbet doesn't score very often? And yes, it does. But nah. We were good on Saturday. We deserved a 2-0 win. There was nobody in that team. Maybe a few that weren't as good as the rest, but there was nobody that was really bang average. You know what I mean? Like, there was no cracks for me on Saturday.
Nah,
yeah,
I'm the same.
You can see the same. You can see the same as well. Like, even when Jade Wright came on and James Scott came on, like, we didn't slow down. They were still they were moving it and stuff. They were still pushing on. So I think maybe you could, again, I agree with Charlie, you could say something, and I think it's becoming fear I'm agreeing with Charlie here. That maybe it does people with a sort of strikers aren't firing, but goals are goals wherever they come from. Like if Demi Mitchell came on and scored one had bounced off Rocky Rashidi, because I don't think he could score first. So I think like it's goals are goals. I couldn't care where they come from. Like Matt Macy could do a Mark Oxley a few seasons ago and put it over. I do not care as long as the ball goes in the back of the net.
Exactly, that's it. There was no cracks to people. I think on the chance we had, if it wasn't for Laidlaw, we could have won that game 4 or 5-0 easily. So yeah, and one thing obviously I was going to bring this up, but I've maybe thought. But now you brought up James Scott, I think when James came on, maybe not so much Dre, but first of all, I'm not going to go too much into it. The booing was ridiculous. That was silly. That was just silly. And I got a few dirty looks from people around me, not Charlie, just to make this explicitly clear. I got a few dirty looks from people around me because I was going, come on, James, come on, Dre. Because I always say, if you don't like a player, obviously it's normal that you're not going to like a player. There's players that people don't rate. Keep quiet and at least give them a chance to prove you're wrong. And I think James Scott, that ball he put over to Doig, that defence split. If Doig had went and scored there, you wouldn't have been booing then, would you? That would have been a great assist for James. And I think James came on and he actually looked. I think he looked quite lively when he came on, to be honest.
If that was Scott Allen that played that ball, no one would shut up with it. Not even knowing they're doing. No one would shut up with it.
Exactly.
That ball was a very good ball. And
it was great. And I think Dre, unfortunately, didn't do himself any favours when he. But again, I think I don't think he's good enough to be Hibs player. It's as simple as that. But he looks better under Maloney. He looks better under Maloney than he did with Ross. And I think that's a clean slate thing for me, to be honest. So we'll move on to Calvin's next point. And I think this is the first time we might actually agree with Calvin here. Is JDH wasted as a CDM? Charlie, I'll come to you first.
I think he is. But when McGuinness is fit, does he get in that McGuinness role? No, he doesn't. But just now, I think, he's wasted at CDM if he can produce that. But it's important that he produces it more often, like, can he be a one and done? Like, he needs to produce this more often. But I agree, Calvin. First time for everything. I think he is.
And Aidan, for you?
I said it earlier, I think he is wasted. He said himself, does not like playing sitting. He said there's video proof of him saying it. He does not like it. So, again, Charlie's right. Again, does not play in that position when McGuinness is back. But it's going to be a fight for GDH and Newell. And then we'll see who comes out of that battle. But the way Maloney is playing, you don't always need somebody sitting. Like, you don't always need somebody sitting. So especially against the teams like County, the bottom half teams where you can just push them on. Like maybe against Hearts and stuff, and then that's where you play somebody who can sit. But then we'd need to bring somebody in for that because there's not really any sitting midfielders in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got exactly. There's home against debate, but I think whilst we've not got McGuinness, I think JDH could perfectly play in that role, but he needs to be doing that more often. Not all the time, obviously, but at least consistently making an effort in that position. So I think he's capable of it, and I do think we'd maybe get more out of him if we play him a more advanced role whilst we don't have McGuinness. And as you said, Maloney's style of football doesn't particularly need a deep lying player all that much. We can afford to be a bit more advanced in midfield, play more attacking football in midfield, and push more in midfield instead of having somebody back all the time. So yeah, and then I think we'll just do the two of these as a package for these points. Is why did Campbell start and why didn't Melkerson feature? So I'll come to you first, Aidan.
I'll go with Melkerson first. I don't think he's ready. I think it's easy enough to have him on the bench, but we need to have him on the bench because if we don't, then we're just going to have a half a bench of academy players who, again, aren't ready. I'd like to see Melkerson feature. We're 2-0 up, so maybe bring him on for 5-10 minutes at the end because we were 2-0 up. But he's not ready, and I just think that's the end of it. I think if he was ready, then he'd play. I don't think Maloney would have a £300,000 player sitting on the bench if he was ready. And I think it's again start not playing since October. How are you supposed to chuck a boy? And then I think I had an argument with somebody who said, "Oh, but he's a professional football player. He's also 19." And then there's the whole thing, if you're old enough, you're good enough, but he's 19. So, in Campbell, it was just out of necessity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I don't necessarily think Campbell was bad. I just think he's just half off the pace where he needs to be for this league. And I think that's all it is. And I think, yeah, it's just necessity. I don't think there's any like deep love for Campbell. I think if anyone else was fit, if Mitchell was fit, it wouldn't be Stevenson.
Yeah, 100%. And Charlie, your views on those two?
Melkerson's obviously ready to be in the squad, but he's not ready to get on the pitch, which is unfortunate, which is also frustrating because, you want to see him play. But if he's not ready, then he's not ready. Some fans, I think, jumped the gun a bit too quick with Melkerson. I think they thought he's maybe the next coming of, I don't know, Haaland or, a striker that we've had in the past that's going to 30 goals a season style player.
Lonnie Riley.
He's not going to do that straight off the bat. Like, next season's a big season for him. Like, I think there's a few players like that will come in next season. And Campbell had no option. Like, who else do you want in midfield?
Exactly.
Like, do you want Stevenson in midfield and play Darren McGregor? I personally don't. So
no, exactly.
And like, he wasn't that bad. Like, on Saturday, he wasn't that great, but he wasn't that bad.
No, 100%. I've got to say, I'm going to go to Melkerson first and say, yeah, and I think a lot of people go, why did you bring James Scotland? You don't see what happens in training. You don't see why the man. You're no a man. All I've got to say is, see Mr. Johnny Tenbelly sitting in the front row shouting and screaming all the time. Are you the one with the UEFA A license? No, you're no. So, shush. No, I'm kidding. But I think, yeah, I completely agree. Melkerson, you've got to remember, he's played in a summer league. Where, and also Norwegian second division. Then maybe it's a step up for any second division in any first division. It's a step up that it's quite big to make. So I think Melkerson, it's just about getting him used to it and giving him the time. And I think it's about when Maloney feels he's ready, but it's also for when Melkerson feels he's ready. He might not feel he's ready. And that's it. You've got to work with a new side, especially because you've got to remember he's new to Scotland as a country as well. You've got to give him time to adapt. When we first had the Americans over and we had with the women's team and we had the pre-season games against Everton and Glasgow Women and everything like that, Dean didn't put Alexa and Tony and Gabby in because obviously they're new to Scotland. They need time to adapt. It's the same with Melkerson. You've got to give them time to adapt to the country, and you've got to, Norwegian and Scottish football are very, very different games. Norwegian football is much more of a sort of, I'd say, a Dutch, very similar to Dutch football, Norwegian football, or German football. So it's a different game to sort of get used to. So you've got to give them that time. As for Campbell, again, I mean, both of you spot on. If you put Stevenson in there, you've got to bring McGregor in. Now, McGregor, I don't particularly like the idea of an aging Darren McGregor coming up against a team like Ross County. It's not, and he's proved this season that he's been a bit of a liability as well with the red cards, which it's unfortunate, but Daz is getting older. We've got to appreciate that. So yeah, I think for me, it was the choice he had to make. It was out of necessity, and I think this whole narrative of Maloney must love Campbell. He's playing out of necessity. You've got to look at the injuries we have as well. Campbell is purely in there out of necessity. So yeah, that's that for me. So that concludes our review of Ross County. So we'll move on now, and very briefly, no Hibs women game because the international break. Obviously, Scotland are away at the Pinatar Cup, which is a sort of mid-season tournament for international teams. They have all different ones, sort of based on your rankings. So the middle and sort of European teams playing the Pinatar Cup, with the elite one being the Arnold Clark Cup. So the Pinatar Cup, Scotland, it's a sort of round robin tournament. Scotland can't get to the final because we've not won enough games. It's looking like it's going to be a Russia-Wales final, the way things are going right now. But we played Slovakia, beat them 2-0, and of course Leah Eddy is part of the Scotland squad. She got on in the 86th minute for Jen Beattie. So I'll come to you first, Charlie. Is it good to see Leah getting on? And because she was an unused sub against Wales, was it good to see her get on in a win where we kept a clean sheet?
I feel like it's pointless taking these players away if you're not going to give them a run out, especially in like a cup that, I don't know, Jack, you'll know more than me, but I don't think the winners get anything. Like, you
get a trophy, but I think I'm going to say this: the Arnold Clark Cup is the more important one because you've got the likes of Germany, England, Canada, USA. In Spain, you've got those sorts of teams. So it's an elite level tournament that those countries take seriously. Pinatar Cup, I'd say the only team in there that's going to do anything is Russia, because obviously they're going to their first major international tournament, Russia women, in the form of the Euros this summer. So obviously for Russia, it is important for them to warm up for the Euros, sort of thing. But to be fair, the countries we were playing, I'd rather we went in, I can't remember what the third one's called, but I'd rather we went in with the likes of Austria and Denmark that have qualified for the Euros as well. if we're going to play there, why couldn't we played Russia or an elite team? Instead, we played Wales and Slovakia. So yeah, I do think it's a funny one, but there's no point. Let's be honest, it's a diddy competition. Let Leah play. At least let us. And I think, you know what, and I don't want to criticise players too much, but I think Jen Beattie looked a yard off the pace in the game against Slovakia, even though we won. So why can't you put Leah in place of her? And Jen's a fantastic, but don't get me wrong, Jen's amazing. She's a brilliant player. And she's so good for Arsenal. I'd say she's a Scotland legend, to be honest. But bring Leah in, and I think another one's Kavanagh and Amy Gallagher should be there as well. 100%. So Aidan, what are your sort of views on all that? And again, was it good to see Leah get a wee run out against Slovakia?
You're right. I think why not just play these people? If it's a dud tournament, so play them. Like why take players? And it annoys me. Why take players away? And it's the same with men go. Why take these players away if you're just not going to play them when you've got to play them 10 minutes to the end? Like, it's all right getting them having that international experience, but it's no point if you're just going to play the minutes. I think it's got a testament to what Hibs have done. I think you've kind of seen over the years that now it's multiple players getting into that in that Scotland squad. And we've seen like Rachel Boyle and stuff get going in the squad as well. But again, yeah, I think it's just a massive testament to what Hibs are doing. And I think you've got to look at women's football in general just now. It's really getting better. But when you're playing dud tournaments, just play the players. I've barely had any international experience. It's only they're going to get more.
Yeah,
again, I think I've only really started paying more attention to the women's game. I think with obviously now going into coaching, you kind of have to, because you're going to be coaching young girls, and I try to pay attention to it as much as I can. But yeah, I've kind of quite happy to see more girls going to the Scotland squad for Hibs, because I think we've got a good women's setup.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that as well. And hopefully, I think we've got one more game at the Pinatar Cup left. So hopefully Leah can get a start or get more minutes in the game. Fingers crossed, because she can play as a CDM as well. She's not necessarily a centre half. She can play up in midfield as well. So I'm not overly convinced with Pedro Martinez Losa as a Scotland manager, but that's for another day. To be honest, I would need a whole other podcast for that. So we'll move on to our final segment of today's podcast, and that is the High B quiz. I'm the quiz master again, so it's Aidan's first IB quiz, I guess. So hopefully you can do well. So I'm the quiz master, as always. Three questions on the men's team, 3 questions on the women's team, so 6 questions in total. And some of them are multiple choice, some of them are not. So we'll jump right into it. And question number 1 is, what Zweite Bundesliga club did Hibs sign Matthias Jack from in 1999? And this is a multiple choice. Your options are SG Wattenscheid, VfB Leipzig, or Fortuna Dusseldorf. And I'll come to you first, Aidan, since you're the guest.
I'll go straight down with the one, go Leipzig.
Charlie, what's your guess? Remember, SG Wattenscheid, VfB Leipzig, or Fortuna Dusseldorf?
Because it's the easiest one to pronounce, I'm going to go Fortuna Dusseldorf.
I can reveal that it's 1-0 Charlie. Charlie's correct.
That's a complete guess.
All 3 clubs were in the 1998-99 Zweite Bundesliga, but it was Fortuna Dusseldorf on a free transfer. Real Matthias Jack came in, and then he left for an Icelandic club, also on a free transfer in 2003. So we'll move on to the second question. Hibs sealed Europe on the final day of the 2017-18 season with a thrilling 5-5 draw against the Rangers at Easter Road. Who scored the 93rd minute equaliser? Charlie, I'll come to you first.
Oh, now you're asking. I'd left by this point. I left when I went 5-3 Rangers, and I got on the bus and Hibs had equalised. That's a funny story. I think.
Disgraceful, Charlie.
I know. Was it Barker? I can't mind.
Is Barker your final answer?
I think it was Barker, aye.
So Aidan?
So no Jamie McLaren, but it was a Barker assist, came down the line, scored it in.
Yeah, I can reveal that it's 1-1. Aidan is correct.
Barker
it was Jamie McLaren.
McLaren scored a hat-trick that game, eh?
Yeah. And then, of course, Neil Lenny came on and did the aeroplane, much to the ire of both the SFA and the Rangers fans. I remember that was a brilliant game of football. That was honestly a brilliant. It's one of the most exciting games I've watched this year. And if I'd been a neutral, I would have been like, that is brilliant for your money. As a Hibs fan, it was the most painful 93 minutes I've ever. But of course, we love scoring goals against Rangers right at the end of games. I've got to say, like that Scottish Cup, wink, wink. So. Move on to question number 3, and the last question of the men's segment. So, Hibs signed a 40-year-old Ray Wilkins during the 1996-97 campaign. how many appearances did he make? Now, nearest guess will get the point. Aidan, I'll come to you first.
25, and that'll be my final answer because I have not a clue who that is.
Right. Charlie?
Did we sign him for Chelsea, or am I mistaken?
I think he'd been without a club. Very well, without a club. He'd been at Rangers before, and he'd been without a club. And we signed him as sort of like it was like an Alex. This was basically the signing that sort of finished Alex Miller as a Hibs manager, effectively. So nearest guess wins. He was 40 at the time.
14.
I can reveal that it's 2-1, Charlie.
25 is optimistic.
How many did he play, Jack?
16.
I was going to go like 38, thinking he played a full season, but
so he made 16 appearances. His debut was a 5-1 loss at Ibrox, I think it was.
Of course, it was.
So where he, much to the eye of the Hibs fans, clapped Rangers fans when he was coming off and he got subbed off. So yeah, he's Hibs. It's time.
There's a reason he only played 16 games for Hibs.
Now, the reason I included this one is I was actually reading it. Shout out to Ian Calhoun in his book, Hibs Are Here, which obviously documents Hibs from 1992 and 1999. And that was a little foot. Now, I didn't know about this. Obviously, he's quite a famous English player, been at likes of Man United and Chelsea early on in his career, and obviously sadly passed away. But yeah, I didn't really play for Hibs, but shout out to Ian for giving me a bit of inspiration there for the quiz. And a fantastic book, I've got to say. I'd recommend a read of both of them, From Oblivion to Hampden and The Hibs Are Here. Both fantastic books. So move on to the Hibs women questions. And we've got, the first one of those is, what was the score when Hibs women faced Hearts in the 2019 Scottish Cup fifth round? Now, this is multiple choice. So is it A, 8-0, B, 7-1, or C, 6-2? Charlie, you're up first.
A.
Aidan?
Yeah, 8-0.
It was 7-1. I can reveal it was 7-1.
Oh, yeah.
You're both wrong. So it's still 2-1, Charlie. It was 7-1.
Did Shiv score a hat-trick in that?
For Siobhan Hunter getting a hat-trick for centre half in that game. So his Hearts were in the SWPL2 at the time. So 7-1. If we kept the clean sheet, we could have replicated the famous score. But obviously that was on our way to the 2019 Scottish Cup final, which we unfortunately lost 4-3 to Glasgow City. So move on to the next Hibs women question. What state is Alexa Coyle from? Our big American striker. Aidan, I'll come to you first.
Do you know what? I want to say California, but I don't even think that. That is the state, isn't it? State of California.
That's the state.
I'll say California.
Charlie, your guess?
Well, I know she went to university in Montana, but whether or not that's where she's from or not is a different question. So I'm going to go with that. I might be wrong.
I can reveal it. It's 3-1, Charlie.
Is it Montana?
Alexa does come from Montana. So we'll move on to the final question. And what country did Leah Eddy receive her first Scotland cap against in 2021? So, Charlie, you're up first.
Scotland.
What country did she play against when she?
Oh, sorry, I thought you said what country did she play it in? Oh, right. Gibraltar.
Right. Aidan.
I'll go. She made her debut at home in Scotland. It's not right, but I'll go with Scotland.
Yeah, it was what country did she get at the debut?
Oh, make it. I get why did I just don't want you?
Because I think it's the in 2021 part that got you confused.
Right.
So, what country did she make her debut or receive her first cap against?
Slovakia.
Unfortunately, you're both wrong. So it remains 3-1, Charlie. It was Northern Ireland that she got her first cap against in a friendly. Scotland won 2-1 in Belfast, and Leah got on in the 89th minute as well. So Charlie won the quiz. 3-1, Charlie. Now, what I'll do is I'll give you a chance to just answer the tie-break question, because I think it's a good bit of Hibs trivia. No points available for this, just a bit to test you out a bit. So the tie-break question was, what year was the new East Stand finished? So, Charlie, I'll come to you first.
2011.
Aidan?
2011.
2011 years are both correct on that. It's 2011. So
I think it was open. A first game it was opened against was Rangers. The Rangers, sorry. Well, actually, it was
Rangers. They were
Rangers.
Rangers. Still Rangers
before
then.
They died.
It was still Rangers before they died. Before they died. So yeah, 3-1, Charlie in the quiz. Charlie, been doing well in the quizzes recently.
I have. So, I know more about Hibs than I thought.
So I'll have to see if Charlie can extend that dominance. So I think the Matthias Jack one was a lucky guess though, because you couldn't.
It was. Oh, it was.
So there you go, Matty Jack, obviously a brilliant player. So that concludes our podcast for this week. Obviously, me and Calvin will be back on Thursday for a preview of Celtic. And all that has to be said is thank you for joining us, Dave, and some brilliant points made and some brilliant discussions. So thank you for coming on and joining us.
No problem. Cheers. It was good. I've been wanting to do one for a while, so it was good.
No, it was good to hear from you as well. And obviously, you can follow Aidan on Twitter. Aidan, where can we find you on Twitter? Would you just like to give the listeners your username?
I think it's Aidan Cameron 9, but it's spelled AIDAN, so people know how to pronounce my name. So there we go. But yeah, it was good. Hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you. So that's us for this. That's us. Like I said, we're back on Thursday. Also, we've got a special guest coming on next week. In the form of Leah Eddy. Obviously, she's back from the Pinatar Cup, so we'll have Leah Eddy on for an interview to chat about her Hibs career and Scotland. Until next time, glory, glory to Hibs. Hey,